Hello everyone, this is Elias Martin of CollectingJapanesePrints.com. Welcome to Woodblock Wednesday, where we get together on Wednesdays and discuss Japanese woodblock prints, paintings, history, and culture. Today's Woodblock Wednesday is actually dedicated on a Japanese American artist. His name is Obata. And for many of you who collect Japanese prints, there is some crossover. There are Western artists that are making Japanese print style artwork in Japan, but then there's also the Japanese artists that were born in Japan but moved to the United States and produced artwork here. And Obata is one of those artists who he worked in he worked in a Japanese traditional method of woodblock prints, but he explored scenes of North America, particularly in California and the surrounding states, that were very compelling designs that become part of the American story of art. So I picked out a couple pieces to discuss that are, I think, really good representatives of his artwork. Both pieces also are included in my current exhibition on my website, CollectingJapanesePrints.com. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the exhibition of newly acquired works for the summer, I encourage all of you to have a look. All right, having said all of that, let's go to the table and see what I have. So I'm going to pan out as I normally do, so you can kind of get a preview of what we'll be discussing. We're going to discuss a print by Obata. It is a Japanese woodblock print, but I'll explain why. Though it depicts a scene not in Japan. But before we get into it, I want to talk about the artist. So again, his name is Chiura Obata. He was born in 1885 and he passed in 1975. And he was born in Japan, but left for the U.S. at 17. And Obata was a gifted artist, and when he made his way to the United States, he quickly found work as an illustrator for newspapers and magazines. And he contributed to dozens of magazines and newspapers. And a lot of collectors actually like to hunt down the ephemera that Obata produced. And in fact, I have one magazine. There's actually a magazine cover that he made. And it's in my exhibition as well. So if you want to have a look, I do have something of Obata's that is in more of an ephemera related material. And so he worked as an illustrator, but in the 1920s, he became very active with painting the American landscape. And he produced a lot of paintings that depicted Yosemite, that area around Yosemite, and then just the beauty of the natural landscape in California. And by 1930, he was able to, in collaboration with the Japanese woodblock print producer or publisher, Takamizawa, he produced a series of woodblock prints that depicted scenes of North America, particularly the Yosemite area. And but in this case, this one print that is dated 1930 depicts a scene of San Francisco and is part of that Takamizawa collaboration. But just to add a few more points to sort of his story that I like to introduce is that, Obata was such a wonderful, successful artist, but by the time World War II came along, he and his wife actually owned a art supply store, and his wife gave informal education on ikebana, and she would teach people how to the traditional Japanese flower arrangement of ikebana, and of course sell art supplies. But the store was shot at after Pearl Harbor, and so they had to close down shop. And shortly thereafter, unfortunately, the Obatas, his family, was interned into one of the camps, and there he continued his artistic endeavors, produced paintings on smaller format, of course, because art supplies were limited in those camps. But he produced a lot of artwork showing the scenes of daily life around the camps, and as well as organizing art events and even art exhibitions within the camps. After World War II, Obata was given back his instructorship at UC Berkeley, and became a full-fledged professor there, and taught art, and of course produced a lot more artwork. And he's well known for actually being quite generous and giving away his drawings to friends and family, and even his neighbors. In fact, I actually have a group of watercolors on my website now that were acquired from one of Obata's neighbors in Berkeley. So it's kind of neat to have that provenance, and he was quite well known to be doing that and giving these drawings away. And so I do have a nice selection of these drawings online. Okay, said a bunch of stuff, and what I want to do is really focus on the print right now. This is a design of San Francisco, Van Ness Street, and it's done in a wash of kind of gray. And what the print depicts is a street in San Francisco as the fog really has taken over. And I want to also show this wonderful application of mica. I don't know if you can tell, the whole background has a wonderful sheen with a application of mica, and it gives the print, it animates the print, and it gives it that sense of that misty, wet quality of the smog, encompassing this composition, and it's done in almost in a sumi-e style, meaning that the design is rendered as almost a sumi painting, but the carving of this is so skillful that it mimics sumi painting, but it in fact is a woodblock print. Now, I'm going to zoom in so you could see. I don't know if you could pick up the mica. It's unfortunate because it's quite wonderful to see in person. But yeah, I don't think I can get it so well on the phone. And the mica that's been applied here is a little bit different than what you normally see on Japanese prints, where the mica is completely covered, covering the background. And here, the mica is covering the background, but what you see is specks going across the surface, which is very neat. And also really gives it a sense of the fog coming in. Now, this design, or this impression in particular, is quite noteworthy because it bears Obata's signature seal and a date. Often, most of these do not bear the signature or the date and the seal, and they lack it. But in this impression, we get the signature, the date, and the seal, which is, really nice to have. Particularly collectors look for those things because it's so rarely found on these impressions. So that's kind of nice. And this particular print comes with the original folder. And there's a design here. This is a woodblock printed design that gives the title of the series, and of course it indicates the publisher Takamizawa, which is really wonderful. I mean, these kind of things don't survive. And so the folder opens up, and we have the original mount. Here's the mat, where we have the title of the print, Foggy Morning, Van Ness Avenue, San Francisco. And then, of course, it says wood cut and color printed by Takamizawa. And, of course, the attribution to Obata there. So this is the original mat. The print was once housed in this mat. And then, of course, within the folder. But the print has been removed from the mat to preserve the print. And so it is now loose. And it is inside. I usually keep it inside a folder of Japanese paper, but you could see the back of the print is free of any issue. Usually the mat causes some problems with toning, and so the print is nice and clean. Now the back of the print is important to note. We also have some more information here. Of course, it's given credit to Takamizawa again, but you will note that so that's important. Most of these prints are not numbered, and this print is numbered, and again, it has the signature and it has the date and the seal. And some people have come up with the theory that the unnumbered, unsigned prints are part of a trial printing that the publisher, sort of kept and then later ended up selling. I don't really know what the difference is in terms of why some of them are signed and some of them aren't, and why some of them don't have a number, but that makes sense to me. And it also makes sense that maybe Obata made a deal with Takamizawa to produce some unsigned, unnumbered impression as a form of payment of some kind. And so I suspect there's some truth to that. But as a collector, one would want the impression with the signature and the number on the back. I mean, that's quite important. But setting all those connoisseurship issues aside, the print itself is quite lovely. The design, again, is a rare design of an American subject produced as a Japanese print. It's wonderful. And then what we have here, again, is a wonderful rendering of Obata's sumi-e style of art, his sumi paintings, and it looks like a quick sketch of the town of San Francisco in fog, early morning fog, but all of this is carved and printed with wood blocks. So I'm going to set this aside, and of course we just saw the folder. But I have another work here to show all of you. It is a really wonderful original work by Obata, and this is something that's sort of typical of what we see of his body of work. It is a waterfall. It is dynamic. He's rendered the waterfall in several colors. There's, of course, the black of sumi, but then he used mineral pigments. So we have purples, we have blue, we also have some green here. And it's all done as almost like a watercolor. Sumi-e is the black Japanese pigment with water. And you get the darker tones by adding less water, and you get the grayer tones with more water. And so it's interesting to see this watercolor or this waterfall done with pigment using water. And you could see his mastery of the medium, because he's able to create these tonalities that are much richer and darker, and then of course lighter. And he uses this wonderful sense of light in the void area of the design. The middle part, which obviously suggests the water coming down and a light hitting it, is actually the color of the paper. There's no white. There's absolutely no white pigment in the composition. It is just the natural tone of the paper in combination with Obata's use of black, green, purple, and blue throughout. So I'm just going to zoom in so you could see the work. This is a really gorgeous, really well thought out and executed work. A lot of Obata originals are kind of quick sketches that he was sort of, working on, maybe as a, just practicing his craft or in preparation or a study for something larger. But this is a real larger, finalized watercolor painting, and it's about twice the size of a woodblock print, so it's very sizable. And again, we have his signature here with his seal. Now, I wanted to show this work in conjunction with this woodblock print because this print is done, like I said, in his style of sumi-e. It's one of the only works from this series done in this style. The others are done, they're done in bright, vivid colors, showcasing landscapes, mountains, and beautiful vistas around the California area. However, in this case, it's a striking, contemplative work that shows the quiet of a very early morning in San Francisco. And for collectors interested in subjects within the United States, this is a wonderful design to look for and certainly acquire. So I'm going to zoom in better so you could see the design and how it's printed. And I'm sorry that the mica is not coming up. I could kind of see it on the screen here, and I just don't see it on the screen. Or in the background of the print, in person, you definitely could see it. And the mica is such an active agent in this composition that you just have to believe me, it's there, and it really makes the work. And again, show a close-up of the woodblock printed label on the cover, and of course the folder opens up to the original mat with the information, and again the watercolor. Obata, and in these particular pieces, but Obata's body of work really adds to Japanese prints, and it contributes a great deal not only because we have a Japanese American artist continuing the tradition that was born in Japan, but then he adds a lot of a variety of subjects that the Japanese themselves had not seen. So we have obviously here the street scene in San Francisco, and then the Japanese, of course, loved seeing different subjects, and so some of his Takamizawa prints were sold in Japan. The market was both in Japan, but I would say the vast majority ended up in the United States, selling here. But as we mentioned earlier, there was a group of Obata prints that were not signed, nor do they have the numberation on the back. And I suspect those were the pieces that ended up selling domestically by Takamizawa. So it's interesting to note there certainly was a market for Obata's work in Japan as well as in the United States. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining me on today's installment of Woodblock Wednesday, where we discussed two distinct aspects of Obata's body of work. We looked at a woodblock print and a watercolor sumi-e. And so I think Obata is one of those artists that is worth looking into. His woodblock prints published by Takamizawa are some of the best, prints produced at the time, and they rival Hiroshi Yoshida's designs. In fact, many collectors seem to agree, as the market for Obata's Yosemite designs have outpaced Yoshida's prints of the same size. And of course, we should take some pride in that, because Obata is an American-Japanese artist, and museums in the United States have recently started taking notice and have acquired a number of watercolors and prints. I believe that Whitney in New York City has acquired a nice group of Obata's work, and so his star is certainly going. I mean, it's brighter than it's ever been, and I'd say as a collector and as a gallery owner, I'm always looking for Obata's work to showcase and introduce to the next generation. So I hope all of you enjoyed these pieces, and of course I have an archive of other videos that I've produced over the last few years, over 100 videos, and they're all archived on YouTube. You can access the videos through my Woodblock Wednesday link on my website, collectingjapaneseprints.com. So I encourage all of you to have a look. So thanks again for joining me. I look forward to seeing you all during the next installment of Woodblock Wednesday. Until then, thank you.